hello and good afternoon, at least from here in California, where I see we have people coming in from all over the place. And just a heads up that both Mejia and I will be running it today. Mejia is going to be kind of working the comments and helping sort of monitor some of the giveaway stuff. If you weren't here last week, we did do several great giveaways. We gave away some pedals, we gave away some cables, and a bunch of other great stuff. We're going to give away more stuff today. I have more instrument cables just to give you a little teaser here. We have some of our the Vertex Rig Doctor approved Belden 8412 cables. I have a couple of different versions of this, right angle to straight, straight to straight, a bunch of 10-footers. So I'm going to be giving away some of these guys. We're going to ship these directly to you. Doesn't matter where you live. You could be in the United States. You could be in the UK. Wherever it is, we shipped some stuff internationally last week. And then I also have some pedals. I have a Vertex Boost MK1, brand new in the box, in beautiful Fiesta Red. So we're going to be giving that away as well. So we're going to do a giveaway about every 8 minutes or so. So I'm going to start the clock, and I'm going to put time till giveaway, and we're going to do around every 8 minutes. We'll do a new giveaway. So I'll start the clock now, and we'll do our first giveaway at about 8 minutes, and we'll be going for approximately an hour, and then we'll move over to our private stream for those that are doing paid memberships. We have kind of a secret show that happens after the live stream. So if you're interested in what that is, you can head over to therigdr.com, and you can actually sign up for one of the private memberships. They start as low as $7. And you can even request a free membership if that's too expensive for you right now, given your financial circumstances. All you need to do is send us an email, info@therigdr.com, and we will grant you a free version of our membership, which also gives you access to the live streams and all that stuff. We don't want money to be standing between you and Great Tone, so feel free to send us an email if you can't afford it. For any reason, again, no questions asked. We give people that membership, but if you can't afford it, there's a couple of different options there for you. The other thing I wanted to tell you before we get started is that we're going to be running on the rigdr.com let's get this going. We're going to be running on the rigdr.com a sale all week long, and this is going to be, all weekend long, and this is going to be for 15%, or actually not 15% off, free shipping. I'm trying to find my... there it is. Here's my ticker. There it is. I know I had the right one somewhere. Yeah, so we're going to do free shipping on all products. Sorry if I misspoke to anybody who is hoping for 15% off. Free shipping on all products all weekend long. Promo code is free shipping 1203, and you can head to therigdr.com. This is all of our cables. This is all of the patch cables, instrument cables, our Power Grip Velcro, Pedalboard Essentials kits, which are like our zip ties and tie-dye mounts and stuff like that. All that free shipping, so definitely check that out. You definitely want to get involved if you can. If you want to have somebody make your cables for you, we can do it in the very way that we ordinarily do it. So that's cool. So we're going to be taking your questions today. I want to do a better job this week of getting to more questions, and so I didn't ask for any questions in advance to kind of make time for that. But I wanted to just remind people about the video that we had this week, which was one of my favorite videos that we've ever shot. The performance of it has kind of been like so-so, but it was 5 songs that you didn't know used a Dumble amplifier. And so we went through kind of the catalog of famous session musicians that might have used a Dumble and try to kind of correlate those with some famous songs that occurred throughout history. And we did some really cool sort of retrospective on some of the classic songs that use Dumble amplifiers that maybe weren't on everybody's radar, like everybody knows about Robin Ford and everybody knows about Larry Carlton. But there's some other guys that people really didn't know about, or that they were used in these really specific instances. And so we kind of went through, cataloged that, and then we had my friend Tim Marco recreate some of those classic songs using Dumble or using our pedal as the Dumble amplifier into a deluxe reverb. But it wasn't really so much about being a pedal demo. It was just trying to get somewhat in the ballpark of what some of those guys used. And a lot of the players were like guys like Steve Lukather, Carlos Rios with Lionel Richie, and Rick Vito, and David Lindley and Robin Ford. So it was really cool to do this and to get to play some of these songs and kind of reinterpret them. So I'll play a few of them throughout here so you can kind of see it. But let's get to a few questions, and we also want to get to that giveaway. We've got about 4 minutes until our first giveaway. Isaac, I think this is funny because some people have commented this a few times. Say he wants to know what the rig doctor thinks of the rug doctor. And I do notice that my name is always superseded by the rug doctor. If you're not familiar with what that is, that's the rug carpet cleaning, kind of like kits that you can rent from a grocery store or some of these places if you have stains on your carpet and you want to do a DIY steam clean. And I suggested to Isaac that maybe we do some sort of YouTube collaboration between the rig doctor and the rug doctor. Not that I'd have much to add to what it is that they're already doing. But let's take a question from Frankie. It says, where do I put a fuzz and a compressor when I'm using the 4-cable method with an NS2 noise suppressor? So this is an interesting one because the noise suppressor thing can be tricky. So if you're using the noise suppressor with a clean amp and you're generating all of the distortion from the pedals, then you really want the loop of the send and return of the noise suppressor to cover the pedals that generate noise. So this would be, your overdrives and distortions and things like that. But fuzzes are tricky because they're impedance sensitive in a lot of cases, and this depends on what fuzz it is. And if you put it in with the noise suppressor, it's going to be sending it a low impedance signal, and so it may not behave the way that you like if it's wanting to really see passive guitar pickups on the input. So this depends somewhat on what the compressor is. This depends on what the amp is and whether you're generating a lot of distortion from the amplifier, because then this becomes like another question. And then in terms of, the compressor, sometimes when things that you put in the noise suppressor tend to have a little less effervescence, let's say, and a little less of their natural character. And so even though compressors are noisy, it can sort of exaggerate some of the dulling effect that they have when they're in that send and return loop of your noise suppressor. So if you can give me a little bit more information, Frankie, we can come back to this in a little bit and see where we are. But let's go to another question here. This is from Dawn. Thoughts on the Strymon Iridium? And thanks for this question, Dawn. And welcome. So the Iridium, I think for what it does is unquestionably a huge resource for people that are playing in church. In particular, is kind of where I see it used most often in real life, and that it allows for the silent stage. It allows you to sort of optimize everything to be on your pedal board. Does it sound as good as an AC30 or as a Marshall Plexi or as a twin reverb? Absolutely not. They're not close to that, I don't think. I think that this is sort of the next evolution in sort of the Line 6 kidney shaped modelers. And we've done better, and Strymon's done, I think, as good of a job as you can do given the confines of what the technology will allow. But I think that a lot of times, especially in the context of younger musicians, not all of them have ever played a real vintage Vox AC30 or a real Marshall Plexi or a real twin reverb. And so kind of like having a reference point that's those real things, sometimes it's really hard to approximate if you don't really have any experience. Like I remember a lot of people saying, well, I heard this delay pedal and it sounds just like an Echoplex. And I said, oh, what's the Echoplex that you've played? And you go, oh, I've never played one. And so there's sort of a context thing that's really important to sort of understand with this. And so I think for the tool that it is, it's fantastic, right? Among the amp modelers that are pedalboard based, I think it's great. Is it as good as those things, and will it replace an amp? I think that the answer is no. And I would presume that Strymon would probably reinforce that same thing if they're being honest about the limitations of the product. But I think that if you're in the context of a place where you can't have amplifiers, I think that it's a great solution. All right, and we're already at 0 seconds on our giveaway, so it's time for our very first question today. And the first thing we're going to be giving away is actually 30 feet of lava patch cable. This is actually a patch cable that we bought a bunch of to use for one of our patch cable shootouts we used. And it was favorable amongst a lot of the different people that were reviewing the cables and were our guests. And so the way that this is going to work, same as last week if you were here, I'm going to ask a question. It's going to come up on the screen. I'm going to kind of contextualize it. And the first person that answers this question correctly in the comments is going to win this product. We will ship it to you directly. You'll get in touch with Mejia, and Mejia's email address is Mejia, MEJIA, at vertexeffects.com. He will put that in the comments section. If you are the winner, you can email him, give him your address, your name, your phone number, your email address, all that stuff, especially if you're international, because we're going to need all that information. And the other thing I'll just mention is sometimes I notice that when you comment, or any of us comment, that our comment will supersede all the other comments, and we will sometimes believe that we are the winners, even though in the global comments that we see on our end, it's not the first one. So I have Mejia screenshot these just so we kind of have a fail-safe, but sometimes I've had the experience where people will think that they are first, but actually in the global comments they're not. So just wanted to give you that heads up. If you're like, well, I really won that in USOB, you didn't give me my cable. It's not because of that. It's because, like, if you look at the big comments and that are happening, like on our end, what we see come in first, that's what we're basing it off of. So just want to give you that heads up because that has happened in the past. So the first question is, and this is something that we've talked about in our videos quite a bit, what is the model number of the Mogami cable that I use? So what is the model number? This is the one that I typically use on all of our rigs. We've done some tutorials on this. We've talked about it multiple times. We even sell this cable pre-made on our website. If you know what that is, go ahead and throw that in the comments, and Mejia will determine who is the first person who answers correctly, and you will win 30 feet. I already actually have it ready to go. Lava giveaway, 30 feet. You could definitely make a pedal board with this. Solder it up. Mejia will let me know who the first person is that answered this correctly, and we will move on to our next giveaway. So first person to answer correctly, and it should be the Mogami 2314, is Kevin Ryan. So Kevin Ryan, if you would send Mejia an email, send him your full name, send him your address, send him your phone number, send him the email address where you want stuff to go, and we will restart the clock. Another 8 minutes, we'll do another giveaway. So stay tuned. Let's go to another, before actually we go to another question, I want to revisit real quick. Again, that we are having a sale on everything on the rigdr.com. We have free shipping on all products all weekend long. So these are all of our cables, patch cables, our Velcro, our tie-down mounts, our zip ties. Free shipping all week long using the code FREESHIPPING1203. So be sure to check that out. If you haven't, head over to the Rig Doctor. It is a site that is in parallel with Vertex Effects. It's a good thing, so go check that out. So I want to go back to the video that we did this week, which was 5 songs that you didn't know that used a Dumble. And man, one of my favorite one, I want to play that one for you first because I really like it. It is, again, my friend Tim reinterpreted some of these classic songs that used a Dumble on them that you might not have known about. And the coolest one I think that he did, or at least my favorite one, is the one of the Lionel Richie song Dancing on the Ceiling. And it's cool because he redid like the sequencer intro that's part of the song, and he redid it on guitar. It originally wasn't done with guitar, and then plays the Carlos Rios solo, and it's doubled just like it is in the real thing. And we used my Tom Anderson Super Strat, and I just wanted to play it for you because man, it's so good. He does such a good job. And if you're not familiar with the song, you should definitely check it out. It's totally a jam. Lionel Richie. I mean, has anybody ever been cooler than Lionel Richie in the '80s? I think I have the album cover here. Check this out. Has anybody ever been cooler than Lionel Richie? I mean, he's just looks amazing. He's got the white suit going on. You know, the era of excess, man. Here it is. Lionel Richie, Dancing on the Ceiling, as interpreted by Tim Marco. I mean, you can't say that. I mean, he played his butt off there. It sounds great, but man, there's a song I had no idea actually had a Dumble on it, and we were actually unsure. And I was able to get a hold of Carlos Rios and actually ask him, you know, what was what, so that he could tell us. Oh, and I realized I forgot to start our giveaway clock, so maybe I'll end this one a few minutes early since it didn't start. So we'll still be on time. Let's go to another question. Let's see. Next one. Got a lot of people checking in from all over the place. Ohio. Some people even local. Alameda and Oakland. Okay. So, I'm not old, I'm vintage. Speaker cables or guitar cables for pedals in the effects loop? I'm guessing it matters. Yes, it matters very much. Please do not use don't use guitar cables for speaker cables, and don't use your speaker cables at guitar cables. It's gonna be a real noise problem for you. So yeah, in the effects loop, just consider it the same as anything else that would connect to your pedals. You want to use your ordinary guitar cable. Preferably the lower capacitance, the better, especially if you don't have an active effects loop. Most effects loops, well, there's no standard, but most of them are not active, and if they are, they can be variable on the quality. So definitely use regular guitar cables. Do not use speaker cables in the effects loop. Just use speaker cables to connect your head to your speaker cabinet. So, yeah. Gabriel Alvarez, this is a good question. Why are Dumble amps, why are they so expensive? And this is something that a lot of people ask fairly regularly about Dumble amps. In fact, even on our Facebook page, or my personal Facebook page, that maybe some of you are friends with me on, some people had asked about why they were so expensive. And I think that the easiest way to qualify that answer is that I don't think it's Dumble's choice necessarily that they go for as much as they do. I don't think that, to my knowledge, he's not selling them for the price that they go for on the used market. That's all dictated by supply and demand. But I would think of it this way, like, if there were only, let's say, 150 or 200 Marshalls that were ever made, like Marshall Plexis, I think you would see a really similar sort of structure of pricing exist for those amps. It's not that they're the best amp that's ever been made, or that you couldn't get great tones with other amps. It's just that if you want that particular one, that there is only a limited number that are available, and so the price is reflective of that fact. So again, if there were 200 Marshall Plexis available, we may see them going for hundreds of thousands of dollars because they're so rare, and they were used on some iconic recordings or used by some iconic artists, like a Jimi Hendrix and people like that. That it causes people to want to invest in. Now, arguably, a Marshall has been on more hit records than a Dumble. And this is another thing that people got into conversation with me about in some of the Facebook groups, is that, technically, if you're looking at sort of like amps pound for pound and how many of them have been on hit records, in terms of like kind of the boutique versions, probably the Rivera modified Fenders have been on more. And if you're not familiar with Paul Rivera, we have a lot of really cool episodes with him, and a podcast episode with him as well, where we talked to him about his amps. And he was kind of one of the early guys in LA that was doing pedalboard rigs and was modifying amps. And, his amps were all over the early Toto records, were all over all the Michael Jackson, like the Quincy Jones produced Michael Jackson albums, because Paul Jackson Jr. used them on most of those hit records. And Tommy Tedesco and all these guys that were kind of in the 80s, Dean Parks, even Larry Carlton had one. I mean, that was probably on more hit records than the Dumble. And we're actually trying to work with Paul right now, Paul Rivera Sr., and coordinate to do a video that's like, about the most recorded amp that you've never heard of, which are these Stage 2 Fender modded Rivera modded Fender amps. And I think that's the best answer that I could give, Gabriel. And I'll do another giveaway in a minute. Let's take one more question before we get to our next giveaway. This isn't a question, but John, I'm glad you're digging the Steel String Supreme. All right, Glenn says, I need a buffer between my Vox wah and my handmade silicon fuzz. What do you suggest? My Polytune 3 as a buffer isn't working well. All right, so this is an interesting one, because old wahs or old style wahs, which I'm presuming the Vox is not like, is not one of like the really modern versions of it. It's like a, kind of a McCoy or some iteration of that. That you actually don't want to have a buffer in between there, and a lot of people will put buffers after their or at least internally in their wahs, as so that when they're on, it's not necessarily that it's buffered, because any pedal on that's buffered, really what it's doing is it's lowering the output impedance enough where it can drive a little bit better to get a better sweep when it's following, or when a fuzz is followed by it. So it's basically just putting a better output, a lower output impedance than what ordinarily would come, or I'm sorry, it changes the output impedance. I'm not sure what the output impedance is that they're choosing. I actually would presume that they're driving it better than it would ordinarily be off a wah, which is not a great line driver. But anyway, they're driving it into the following pedal, which is a fuzz, so that you get a more reactive sweep from your wah pedal, instead of it kind of becoming very limited once you turn on a fuzz. Now, I think it's a compromise no matter what, because no vintage wah ever had a standalone buffer that was built into it so that it wouldn't affect the sweep. And so you're feeding a buffer into a fuzz pedal, which is also not ideal. So I think the best workaround is actually just to change the position. If you put the wah after the fuzz, it'll maintain the sweep, and you can have them both on. Now, some people don't like that because you saturate the wah more, and it can be more distorted. But I did this shootout with Philip Sayce a long time ago, maybe like 7 or 8 years ago, at Mates in North Hollywood. And he was kind of showing me his approach with wahs and how he kind of used them. And sometimes he liked the effect of having a wah first and what it did when you had turned on a fuzz. And then in other cases, he liked what it did when you had it after. And so he would kind of play games with where he put his wah, and sometimes would use it after certain overdrive and distortion effects like a fuzz, and sometimes would use it before, depending on the effect that he wanted. But I always have thought that putting a buffer, in retrofitting a wah to have that internally, it was a compromise on both ends. You're getting kind of a suboptimal fuzz tone because you're hitting it with a buffer, or maybe you have the wah saturating a little bit more from the fuzz hitting it first. So I usually just reverse the order, and I like how that sounds. But not everybody agrees with me on that, and I'm actually okay with the compromise in the sweep by doing it, because I just think that the buffer kind of just wrecks an old fuzz face. I have an old. I think this one's a 70 fuzz face. It's silicon, but it sounds like garbage if you put a buffer in front of it, whether that's built into a retrofitted wall or not. So I don't think it's the move, man. Let's go to another giveaway. So again, giveaway, I'm going to ask the question. The first person to answer it correctly in the comments will get it. Mejia is going to be your point person. You're going to email him. He's going to have his email in the comments below. we're going to be giving away a straight-to-straight Neutrik ends. This is a Belden 8412. This is the winner of all of our cable shootouts for an input cable. That's the cable that goes from the guitar into your rig. That's the optimal place to use it. So I'm going to ask this question. If you answer it correctly, the first person to answer correctly, we get this shipped to them right to their door for free, no questions asked. The question is, if you have to cross, this should say your AC signal, or your AC and signal cables, how should you do it? So if you have, let's pretend, here's my AC line, and let's pretend here's my audio line. If I have these two, how should they cross? Where should they be positioned relative to each other in order to eliminate noise? Because if you put them in one position, you can have a real noise problem. But if you put them in another position, they're not going to have that noise problem. So what's the best way to place those so that it can be as quiet as possible? The first person to answer that correctly, this is something that we talk about in a few of our most recent videos. And we have Connor Forrest already coming in with the win on this one. Congratulations to Connor. If you're not Connor, don't email us on this one. We'll wait for the next giveaway. Connor, congrats. So basically the thing that we always say is if you're dealing with AC, okay, this is different from DC. Almost every pedal that you can think of is out there is DC. For AC lines, though, like I'm trying to think if I have one here. Okay, here's a good example of an AC pedal. Here's my Providence SOV1, and it has an AC molded cable. This I would want to keep away from my signal cables, and if I have to cross it with my signal cables, I want to do it in a, let me do it over here, in a perpendicular fashion. I don't want to do it on top of each other in parallel. So that's how you would want to do it if you ever have any AC, hardwired molded AC cables like this, or you have something that takes AC and you have some sort of AC power supply, you know, like a pedal power AC, or even like the True Tone CS12 has one AC output. You just want to be really careful with where those sit in relationship to your audio cables, but that's only AC. Regular pedals, DC, no problem. You can put those anywhere. There's not going to be a noise problem. So congratulations to, was it Forrest? Connor Forrest. Congratulations to Connor. Claim your prize. We're going to do another giveaway in 8 minutes. Let's take some more questions. This is from Hector. Super random, but what adapters do I need to run an HX Stomp and Time Factor with the Voodoo Lab Pedal Power 2? I don't think you can run both those off of Pedal Power 2. The only thing you could do, well, I think the Time Factor you might be able to by using 5 and 6, and I think is Time Factor 9 volts? I think it's 9 volts. Is using the 5 and 6 in doubling the current. You know, so we have a cable that we show how to make on our DIY power cable tutorial. So you're just going to double the current so that you can get that as much current to that time factor as possible. I think it draws somewhere around 500, maybe a little more. But for the HX, you're not going to be able to do it. So you're going to have to use the courtesy out on the Pedal Power 2 and run the adapter that comes with it. Or you could just get a new supply. Like a Strymon Zuma, for example, would power this, or a Chalks 7 or 8 would power this thing, and you wouldn't need to use the provided adapters or the power adapter for the HX. So you can't really do it with just the HX Stomp, unfortunately. Costas pre-ordered your boost from Har. Excellent. Yeah, if you're in Europe and you want to order the new Vertex Boost MK2, our buddy Har is the way to go. Reverend got his pedals. Very cool. Thank you for the support, as always, Reverend. All right, this is from Ethan. Hey, Mason. I have a super noisy rig. All my pedals are powered by a True Tone isolated power supply. But for some reason, even with everything off, it gives crazy buzz. All right, so I presume here, Ethan, that when you say you have an isolated True Tone, it's not the one-spot wall wart. It's like a CS6 or a CS7 or a CS12. So I'm presuming that that's what you mean. If that's not what you mean, then you can tell me somewhere else later in the comments, and we can come back to this. But presuming that you have that, there could be other factors. So one of them could be the cables. That could be one factor. If you're using, let's say, solderless cables, or you're using inexpensive pre-made cables that maybe even be soldered. There's a variety of qualities that exist out there which could be causing the problem. The other problem could be inherent in the pedals themselves. And so the easiest way, I think, to track down the problem is firstly, turn off the volume on your guitar and make sure that it's not the guitar that's picking up something in your environment. Because a lot of times people attribute noise to just the fact that they have single coil pickups and there's airborne RF, wherever you go, and in some areas it's worse than others. So just verify that when you turn your guitar volume off, you're not getting any noise. If the noise is still present and all your pedals are off, then what I would start to do is I would start at the very end of the signal path, and I would plug the guitar into the very last pedal input and leave the output still connected to your amp. And I would work backwards. So let's say, for example, that your last 3 pedals, just to kind of walk you through the sequence a little bit, are, let's say, reverb, delay, and chorus. Okay, those are the last 3 pedals, let's pretend. So if I'm troubleshooting this, I'm going to go guitar into reverb, reverb into amp. Is the noise there? No? Okay. I'm going to add in one more pedal. So I'm going to go guitar now into delay, delay into reverb, reverb into amp. Is the noise there? No. Okay, I'm going to add in the next one, which is the chorus. Now I'm going to go guitar into chorus, chorus into delay, delay into reverb, reverb into amp. Is the noise still there? You're going to keep playing that game, and you'll start to see if it's isolated to a specific product or whether it's cumulative. When you start adding more pedals, are you getting more noise each time you add in something new? So this, if that's the case, then it could be that maybe there are some buffered pedals on there that don't have great buffers. This could be something that maybe is really obvious, and it's just like this patch cable that's kind of like creating some issues and some intermittent sounds, or is creating some noise. Usually, this is the best way to reveal the issue. So check that out. And we actually did a video on this with Red about troubleshooting rigs, and it walks you through it a little bit more explicitly. So you can check that out if you're interested. All right, 3 minutes till our next giveaway. Just a heads up to everybody who's watching. James asked, does the boost alter the tone at all, or is it fully transparent? If you're talking about our boost, the Vertex boost, it is fully transparent. No tone change whatsoever. Whatever comes in, comes out, instrument or line level, guitar or bass, doesn't matter what. Whatever goes in, goes out, and then you're just adding volume on top of that as though you just turned up your amplifier. Smokey says, do I need, I think he means buffers, not buffets. I think buffets are gone I think COVID killed buffets, unfortunately. Do I need buffers on both outputs of the AB box at the end of my chain? No. So, because it's just one output that's split, no, you shouldn't need one on each side, because it's the same signal that's getting sent to both sides. Especially if you build your own, or you build the one based on the one that we showed in our diagrams, just a single buffer should be fine. Henry, you have slight comb filtering on the audio. Do you have 2 mics on at the moment? I don't. I just have the Universal Audio Thunderbolt running this microphone, and I've told Ecamm about this problem. I'm not sure what the problem is. I've been trying to ask RJ Ronquillo, who uses the same thing that I use. So I'm not sure why we're getting this comb filter, and I know exactly what you're talking about. And I've sent Ecamm, who's our streaming service that we employ for this, why this is happening. I've sent them the stream. So if anybody has any hip ideas, like if I'm looking at what's going on here, it's saying that there isn't anything. But I don't know. Maybe I'll check the camera and see if for some reason it's still transmitting through it. But I think according to this, it shouldn't be transmitting through anything except just the microphone. But maybe it is. Maybe the camera is still somehow on, even though it says that the audio of that is muted. Thank you for that, though, Henry. Hello from Singapore. Check out Schoppenfield Music. I'm doing a few videos on my Vertex pedalboard build. Very cool. Awesome. I will. Is that on Instagram, or is that on YouTube? Let's see. Is it bad, Steven? Is it bad to have a wah at the end of your pedal chain? is it bad from like a sonic perspective? I suppose it's relative, right? That's a matter of taste, not a right or wrong sort of thing. And if you like how it sounds with everything going into it, then God bless you, man. No, I'm not here to stand in your way. I would say ordinarily that would be an orthodox place to put a wah. But in terms of the consequence, I wouldn't want to use it as like a line driver back to my amp, as long as you had a decent buffer after it. I don't think in terms of, if you like that sound, I don't think there's going to be any sonic degradation as a result of using it there. If you use a decent quality buffer at the end of the chain, I don't think that there's any rule about using wahs at the end. It's just not generally where people would put it. They'd usually put it closer to the guitar. Are you sure the rug doctor isn't cleaning wigs? I don't know. I don't know what he's doing. Is that what the rug doctor... Oh, I get it. Yeah, because my rug. Right. Well, maybe if and when I lose my hair, I might have to see the rug doctor. But we're at 0 seconds, so it's time for another giveaway. So let's get on it. All right. So just to remind people on how this works, if you weren't here for the first couple of questions, I'm going to put a question up on the screen. When that question comes up, the first person to answer this question correctly in the comments is going to win the thing. So we already gave away one cable. I'm going to give away another cable now. This one is a right angle to straight. This is a Vertex, the cable shootout winner, the Belden 8412, the Pete Cornish cable, with a silent end on a right angle end and then a straight on the other side. So this is going to be given away for you free. I think we charge $80-ish bucks for this on the site. So you're getting $80 for free here. Good value, right? Free. And we ship it to you free wherever you are. First person to answer it correctly wins the cable. The question is, who gave me the name, the Rig Doctor? Who was the person that gave me the name, the Rig Doctor? The first person to answer that correctly in the comments wins the cable. Let's do it. And Mejia will be the one, your point person. He'll put his email address in the comments. If you're the winner, you can reach out to him, give him your name, your address, your phone number, and we'll get you the cable. I might even be able to get to you today. Frankie Kimberly is our winner. Frankie Kimberly, congrats to Frankie Kimberly. You won the cable. We will send that to you ASAP. If you're Frankie Kimberly, be sure to send me an email. If you're not Frankie Kimberly, we got another giveaway coming in 8 minutes, so you have plenty of more opportunities to win. All right. Oh, sorry, that was Frankie Kimbrell. Mejia, I think, had an autocorrect. That's Frankie Kimbrell. So if there was a Frankie Kimberly, this is not you. This is Frankie Kimbrell is our winner. Cool. Oh, Vince asking, I always love talking about MIDI cables. I want to join the MIDI committee one day, but for now I'm not on it. So best MIDI cables. So this is an interesting thing. MIDI really, for what we're using it for guitar stuff, we only need 2 conductors and a shield. So you don't need all 5. The 2 outside pins are really not used. So mic cable is really just fine to use for this. So I recommend using the Mogami 2552. Mogami 2552. It's very thin and low profile. It's easy to route on a pedal board, and it works great. And you just want to designate the shield, as the middle pin on the MIDI connector, and then it doesn't matter which one of the center conductors you use for the 2 to the left and right of center, as long as they match up on both sides. Or if you're making another company's MIDI to TRS, there's some unusual non-MIDI protocol standards of people doing something a little bit different there. But for the most part, if you're just wiring standard MIDI plugs, for ordinary pedals, you just wire it 1-to-1 and just keep the shield in the center. And technically, you actually don't even need the shield on the input side. The shield is generally only connected on the output side. But because we don't have directional MIDI cables that indicate which side the shield is connected, we're typically relying on the manufacturers to do that part internally and to float it. So I wouldn't worry about floating it. But ordinarily, if you're really going by the book, you would connect the shield on the output, and then on the input side, the shield would be disconnected, and it would just be the two connectors to the left and right, or the two lugs on the left and right of the center. So that's MIDI for you. Let's see. Smokey, do I need buffers on? Oh, we talked about this one, Smokey. I think you rewrote it after the buffet one, the correction of the buffer to buffet. I thought your this is from Wick. I thought your carbon battery versus wall power adapter comparison was great. Very obvious difference. We actually have a question about this coming up, so you may be in a unique position to win this, Wick, as being a recent viewer of that video. But basically, we have this product. I think I actually have an older version here on the wall. I'll bring it down for you. So here is an older version of the Vertex battery power supply, and you can see it has 4 spaces for batteries, and it has a top that you have a thumb screw, and you can screw it down, and this can go underneath your pedal board, or it can go on top of your pedal board. Doesn't matter. But in essence, what it does is it allows you to power pedals off a battery similarly to how you would if you were just using an ordinary power supply. And in fact, this has an input that a normal power supply can feed it with, so that it turns off the batteries when the pedal board isn't in use. So you don't have any reason to try to disconnect pedals or unplug them or anything like that. That preserves the battery for you. But what Wick is talking about is in the video, we show pedals that actually perform and sound different when they're powered off of a carbon battery, which is the cheap dollar store batteries, versus an ordinary power supply, and the reasons for that. And it's not every pedal that's going to have this difference. It's really going to be exclusive to like fuzzes, distortions, overdrives, old wahs, octaves, like octave fuzzes, and things of that nature that are typically made to resemble in terms of its circuit a vintage pedal. And they sound quite a bit different. Dynamically, they sound a little darker. They have a little bit more saturation. And there's some things that even the power supplies that emulate batteries can't fully do. And we get into the reasons for that, and we show some A-B comparisons in real time, where I have an A-B selector that I'm selecting between, so you can hear the pedal in real time switching between battery and the power supply. And the differences are pretty drastic. So I definitely recommend you check that out. It's a pretty cool video. Jerry asks, have you tried out the 29 pedals Una yet? I have. In fact, it's on the pedal board that I built for David Ryan Harris as the input buffer. So yes, I have tried it out. It's on David Ryan Harris's board. You can check out that rig. That was probably like a month or so ago. Yeah, it's on that rig. I have used it. Let's see. Frankie, and you were the one that won. Kimbrell, I'm using a Keeley compressor and a Fuzz Face Jimi Hendrix Mini clean amp with all overdrives from distortion pedals. Oh, I think that this is going back to a question that was... Okay, got it. Yeah, so if you're using a clean amp, I frankly wouldn't use the noise gate at all. Because it's going to wreck the sound of the Keeley compressor, and it's going to definitely wreck the sound of the Fuzz Face. So I would say if you have single coil pickups and you really hate noise that much, I would just go to noiseless pickups, honestly, because I think that's going to do less harm than the noise suppressor is going to do. And if you like the Hendrix thing, which I'm presuming you do because you have his Fuzz, the area, I think it's 67s, are great. They sound really good from DiMarzio. And they're quiet, and they have that kind of bell-like, Hendrixy thing, and they sound fantastic. And they're not that expensive. I think that they're like $70 or $80 per pickup. But I think if you get them in a set, you might get them for a little less money. That's brand new. You might be able to find a used set on eBay or Reverb, because man, like if your noise gates, I can't think of an easier way to just wreck a great tone. I mean, unless you're using it for effect. Like when I work with Toast and Abasi, he uses the noise gates, but he's almost using it as an effect, not so much because of its noise elimination properties. Anyway. All right, Carl, where's the best place to put a whammy ricochet in Digitech drop through the front or through the effects loop. Well, ordinarily for the stuff that's doing like pitch like that, the closer they are to the guitar, the better they react. So the further away you put it, the less ideal it is. So I would say as close to the guitar as possible is ideal. As close to the guitar. Heart of Estria. To protect my reverb and delay pedals, should I run an LS2 or an extra effects loop when playing high gain? From what? Protecting them from getting overdriven by what's coming before them? Clarify that for me and we'll come back. Kevin says, Mason, do you have any recommendations for a high gain amp in a box pedal? Well, it depends on what kind of high gain you like. I mean, I love our dynamic distortion. It's a great high gain pedal, and it's very dynamic and reacts like an amp, kind of more like a 70s kind of JMP-ish thing. It can get kind of fuzzy almost if you really max it out, but it's very dynamic and glassy if you bring down the volume, just like a tube amp would be. But if you're kind of going for like legacy pedals, the Marshall Governor is a great one, and that's one that a lot of people have modeled their own distortion devices off of because it's like such a great sounding, very amp-like. You know, Gary Moore used to use these in the 80s. I have one back on the wall back there that's just absolutely fantastic. I highly recommend that if you really want to get the real deal. And you know, there's some that are UK made. There's some that I think are made in Korea that are a little later. And as long as they're one of the black ones, they're all pretty close. You know, like those components don't know that they were assembled in Korea or if they were assembled in the UK. And so I think some of the attribution that people have made about where they're made is a little bit false. So I think either way, you can't go wrong. Those are such good pedals. And they sound really good. They have a treble middle bass control. I would say try to find one of those if you can. So those are really great. We're at 0. It's time for another giveaway. Okay, so rules are still same as they were. We're gonna ask a question, put it up on the screen. First person to answer it correctly in the comment section wins this item. This is gonna be there it is. It's gonna be another one of our instrument cables. The 8412, the Belden 8412, this is the winner of our input cable shootout that we did with all of the fancy cables. This is the one that people unanimously chose. 10-foot cable shipped directly to your door, free of charge. Answer this question correctly, and Mejia will be your point person. Here we go. The question is what's the missing variable from a power supply attempting to emulate a carbon battery via a sag control? And we talked about this just a moment ago. So sag control is controlling the voltage. But what's the variable that's missing? So like on a pedal power 2, for example, there's a sag control that's supposed to emulate a carbon battery that's depleting. But that's only one of the 2 really critical variables to emulate a carbon battery. What is that other missing variable? There's voltage, and then there's this other thing that's happening. Who's got that thing right? The first person to answer that correctly is going to be our winner. All right, and that's Sebastian. Sebastian A is our winner for question number 4. The answer should have been current, because batteries not only are fluctuating in voltage when you're using them, but they're also doing what's called current limiting. So there's this interaction, this tug of war happening between voltage and current all the time when you have a really, you have a high source impedance from these carbon batteries. They do things that are irregular and are not linear. And when you look at a power supply and how it handles emulating a battery, it does it in a linear fashion where it's just, if you lower the sag, it's just 6 volts, 6 volts, 6 volts, 6 volts, 6 volts, 6 volts infinitely, right? But Mejia says that he messed this one up, so maybe we do have a second winner. But I'll tell you what, there are no losers. If I said that you were the winner, that's our fault for getting it wrong. So we'll award 2 cables. I'll have another cable made and send it out to the actual winner. So Mejia is going to let me know who the actual winner is that said current, if there was such person that said it before I said it. Otherwise, we won't have a winner for that one, and I'll still honor that we had given a winner out on that one. So Mark Young is the real winner, but because we had falsely announced the other winner, hopefully that person has now learned the correct answer, and because we got that wrong, we will still award you the cable. So congratulations to both of you. Thank you, Mark. We're going to reset the clock. We have one more giveaway to do. Remember the last one we're giving away, a Vertex Boost pedal, brand new in the box, Fiesta Red, limited edition color, shipped directly to your door, no matter where you live. So in 8 more minutes, we'll have that one. And then we will move to our private stream. For those of you that are members, you will get the link emailed to you if you haven't already, and you'll be able to continue the stream with us there on the private channel. And of course, if you want to move to the private channel, you can always visit us on therigdr.com, and you can subscribe there, and you will get the link sent to you immediately, so you can continue this conversation there. But let's go through. I'm gonna kind of go a little bit later in here and find some other questions that maybe we didn't answer, so that we're not just giving priority to recency. Let's see. I have to scroll through all of our winners here. A lot of people got it right. All right. This is from Levi. Do you have any recommendations for Bluetooth MIDI interfaces that I can mount on the bottom of my pedal board to connect my MIDI-enabled pedals? So this is Bluetooth MIDI interfaces. I don't know any Bluetooth MIDI interfaces that have a Bluetooth function that you can control them with. I know of there's a few Bluetooth switchers out there that enable that. I think the new GigRig one purports to do that, but I didn't see the app that it's controlled in, so I'm not sure about that. So I don't have a good answer for you. I'm sorry, Levi, on that one. John says, will buffering the effects loop on one of your buffered pedal builds work into a Two-Rock Studio signature amp? The one in the Vertex Boost will work if you use the expression insert as the new effects loop. So in order to connect the Two-Rock, you would go send into Boost input and return from Boost output. And then you have the expression jack in between those two, which then you can use an insert cable, and you could go 100 feet and not have any issue. You'd have your buffered loop at that point. But you'd want to have as short of cables as possible going in and out of the Boost. You wouldn't want to run the Boost down on your pedal board. But this would be true of any sort of buffered effects loop box, whether it was that or whether you're using the Clinulator, which is one that I recommend quite a bit. Especially the small solid state one is ideal. For effects loops, tube is really not beneficial the same way that it is for a regular amplifier. Tube has quite a bit of color, and ordinarily what you put in your effects loop, you don't want to be coloring that. You want to just get the pure delays, reverbs, the time-based effects without a lot of color. Adding tubes in there are not going to be colorless. Tubes are color. That's just in their nature. We can't expect a chair to be a hammer. It's not. It's not what it is. And so I usually recommend that people go solid state for their effects loops when at all possible. Not only for noise reasons, but also because it's more transparent. And the small Clinulator is a great option for that as well. If you want to, because that is a little less money than our Boost is, unless you needed the Boost aspect. Let's see, what else do we got? All right, this is from Daryl. I put a buffer, a Polytune Mini 3, after my modulation pedals at the end and into the effects loop. I also have a Wampler Tumnus that's always on at the end of my direct into amp effects. Any thoughts? Okay, so I put a buffer after modulation pedals at the end into the effects loop. I also have a Wampler tumnus that's always on at the end of my direct into amp effects. Well, I mean, I don't think that I would put the Polytune up front as the first thing that you hit as the input buffer. That makes the most sense for that. And then if you want to have a buffer into the front of the amp, I would add a separate output buffer there. A cheap one, if you don't want to spend a lot of money, is you could get just the individual bona fide buffer from TC, or you could get the True Tone one, is small and also is really nice. It's a pretty good buffer, especially for $50. I would say separately in your effects loop with your modulation, delay, and reverb, I would put a buffer on the return if you find that you're getting some loss. If it's a passive loop, then you will need more than that. You'll need to get something that turns a passive loop into an active loop, like the clinulator. But it really depends on the amp. I think I'm understanding your signal path right with what you said, but if I'm not, then correct me, please. 2.5 more minutes until our next giveaway. Just a quick reminder on that one. Let's see. Keenan says, I go straight into my 65 twin reverb, no pedals in my 2x2 apartment. Where's the nearest hospital for hearing damage? Awesome. Yeah, twin reverbs can be unforgiving in that regard. Jonathan, when you're running two pedals off of one output source on your power supply, how do you go about determining which pedals will play well together? There's a couple factors. I mean, some are just known because I've done it enough times where I just know, like, this doesn't do well at sharing with other stuff. But typically, it's either stuff that's digital. You don't typically want to share digital stuff, or that it has some sort of clock in it if it's analogs, like choruses, tremolos, phasers. Not always, but sometimes, depending on how they're grounded. There's one particular one I can remember from a manufacturer that is very prominent, where the whole the case was not grounded at all, and the way that they had these two separate choruses in it, and you could A/B between the choruses, and they were like cross talking with one another because of the way that they were grounded, and it really needed to be grounded with either like a star ground or I ended up fixing the problem. But I remember that the guy had built his own rig, and it was like creating this pulse through the whole rig, because that was sharing power, and it was oscillating, so you could just turn the speed knob and you could hear the pulse, change in the amplifier. And and it was just like, maybe in in one context it might have been okay and not that noticeable, but usually we want to try to design, if possible, our pedals in the worst conditions. And I'm guilty of having had that problem, like with the dynamic distortion, for example. If you use a cheaper switch mode power supply that's not designed for audio, it'll oscillate too. And so I'm not saying that this is, every manufacturer's immune. I've certainly had my own shortcomings and trying to presume every possible bad scenario. So, I think every company probably has one product where, there was a few things that slipped through the cracks. But I would say keep it analog. Typically, distortions, overdrives, wahs, stuff like that are usually better candidates. Lower current, analog, overdrive, distortion, wahs. That would usually be the things that I would stick to. And I would just have a Y cable at the ready where you could do these tests and combine things and make sure that you're not getting any additional noise when there's two things that are sharing power versus just one of them alone. I think it's always a good test to do that vetting process before you go ahead and put it on the rig. So, obviously there's that caveat, right? Analog, overdrives, distortions, delays that are low current, and testing it is the ultimate test. So we have expired on our time. I'm going to do our very last giveaway. Again, this is for a Vertex Boost, brand new, shipped to your door, no questions asked. I'm going to put the question on the screen. The first person to answer it correctly is going to win. And again, shipped to your door, no questions asked. And this should be a good one. Before I announce it, I just want to again remind people that if you head over to therigdr.com, we have free shipping on all products. These are our cables, zip ties, tie-down mount, Velcro. All the stuff that we use on all the rigs is available there. It's free shipping worldwide all weekend long. So make sure that you head there, you order what you need. We have all sorts of pre-made cables that you can have designed to length, all the good stuff. Also a reminder to check out our YouTube video that we posted about the guys that used a Dumble and a bunch of those songs that were used with Dumbles. And I think that everybody's going to dig it. I think it's very cool. Here is the very last question, question number 5. First person to answer this correctly wins the Vertex boost. The question is, name one condition where you would not need an input buffer on your pedal board. This is not considering impedance sensitive devices. So in other words, what would be a setup where, in other words, the input buffer would already be satisfied by you having one of these things? There's a couple of different answers to this. So you could put something in. So again, this is barring any sort of impedance sensitive device that you wouldn't want to put a buffer in front of. Let's pretend everything can take a buffer and there's no issue there. What would be a situation where you wouldn't need an input buffer because you had one of these things? So the answer that people should be giving is something along the lines of, and Jonathan DeLoca won the boost, by the way. And the answer should be something like this. Either active pickups, because active pickups are in essence putting the buffer inside the guitar, so the input buffer starting earlier, starting at the guitar, instead of waiting until the cable gets to the board to start the input buffer. Or if you have a wireless system. A wireless system is basically doing the same thing. It's converting to low impedance. And so the necessity for having a buffer in the front of the rig is not so critical then if you have already a wireless system or you have active pickups. Now there may be a few other caveats to that. I did see some people write that you already had a buffer on there, but we're sort of presuming again that you already have, stuff that's on the board that's compatible in this situation where you wouldn't need to add a redundant buffer on that input because you'd already have it satisfied by something else. One of the other questions that I was hoping that Mejia put in there, because we talked about it, we're big fans here at Vertex of Dr. Stephen Brule, another doctor, just speaking doctor to doctor. And one of the questions that we were going to ask was, it was something about, Mejia's going to have to remind me probably on this, but the question is, what is music? So I'm going to play for you Dr. Stephen Brule's interpretation of what is music.
Today's topic is going to be music. We're going to have a lot of fun. Could be good. Music. What would the world be like without it? Who cares?
Check it out!
What would the world be like without it? Who cares? Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching today. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for participating in the giveaway. We greatly appreciate it, and we hope to see you next week. We'll be doing the giveaways. We have lots of cool stuff here. We're going to have some other people involved, too. We're going to be giving away some strings. We're going to be giving away some accessories, some capos and stuff like that. So we have some other people that are going to be participating with us on this, so we're appreciative to them. And if you'd like to join us over at therigdr.com, if you want to be part of the private stream, you can head over there. You can sign up for an account, or if you don't have the money, you can, of course, request a free account. We grant 100% of those, no questions asked. So please make sure that you head over there. And I guess there was one super chat that came in that I was derelict in my duties in answering, and so I'll make sure I get to that, whether we are still able to insert it here or not. Let's see. I can't find it, Mejia. Oh, here it is. All right. Thank you, firstly, for the super chat. You've done a Dumble style pedal. Ever consider doing a Vox pedal, aka a chime machine pedal? Chime machine. That's actually a really good name. If we ever come out with a chime machine, we'll have to owe you a free pedal for that. I haven't thought about it. I have some great Voxes, but I think that the thing that's difficult about those is that in essence, some of the things they do actually can be achieved with an EQ, unless you're really trying to go for like the some of the breakup, which a lot of the breakup on there, or a lot of the distortion, or something that needs to be considered in that is the Celestion Blue speakers have a really particular type of breakup from those Alnico speakers as well. That's kind of a consideration or overlooked consideration about those Voxes, or even the silver versions that some of the guys like the Edge and stuff like that use. But I haven't considered it. But it is a consideration going and doing a deep dive into some of the Vox stuff. They're certainly great amps, and I love those sounds unquestionably. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the name even more. So thank you so much, NTPL Worship. All right, guys. We will head over to the private stream. Thank you again, everybody, for being here, and we'll see you next week.